World Heritage Sites in Caribbean islands, Antigua Naval Dockyard and related archaeological sites, Antigua and Barbuda. The site consists of a group of Georgian-style naval buildings and structures set within a walled enclosure. The natural environment of this side of the island of Antigua, with its steep, narrow bay surrounded by highlands, offered shelter from hurricanes and was ideal for repairing ships. The construction of the dockyard by the British Navy would not have been possible without the labor of generations of enslaved Africans since the end of the 18th century. Its aim was to protect the interests of sugarcane planters at a time when European powers were competing for control in the Eastern Caribbean. Nelson's Dockyard is a cultural heritage site in Marina in English Harbor located in St. Paul Parish on the island of Antigua in Antigua and Barbuda. It is part of Nelson's Dockyard Natural Park, which also contains Clarence House and Shirley Heights and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is named after Admiral Horatio Nelson, who lived in the Royal Navy Dockyard from 1784 through 1787. Nelson's Dockyard is also home to some of Antigua's sailing and yacht events such as Antigua Sailing Week and Antigua Charter Yacht Meeting, as well as the 2015 and 2016 International Optimist Championships. After England acquired colonial British Antigua and Barbuda in 1632, the English harbor became a focal point of the establishment of a naval base. Its position on the south side of Antigua Island facilitated the monitoring of the neighboring French island of Guadeloupe. Additionally, the harbor is naturally well suited to protect ships and cargo from hurricanes. In 1671, the first recorded ship to enter English harbor was a yacht, the Dover Castle. It was chartered by the king by a colonist Stroud for the use of the governor of the Leeward Islands when he visited the islands under his jurisdiction and Cheshire pirates. The first reference to the defense of English Harbor occurs in 1704 when Fort Berkeley was listed as one of the 20 forts established around the coast of Antigua. By 1707, naval ships used English Harbor as a station, but no facilities had been yet built for the ship maintenance of the repair. By 1723, English Harbor was in regular use by British naval ships, and in September of that year, the harbor gained a reputation of a safe, natural harbor when a hurricane swept ashore 35 ships lying in other ports in Antigua, while HMS Hector and HMS Winchelsea, both moored in English Harbor, suffered no damage. Next is historic Bridgetown and its garrison, Barbados. Historic Bridgetown and its garrison, an outstanding example of British colonial architecture consisting of a well-planned old town built in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, which testifies to the spread of Great Britain's Atlantic colonial empire. The property also includes a nearby military garrison, which consists of numerous historic buildings. With its serpentine urban layout, the property testifies to a different approach to colonial town planning compared to the Spanish and Dutch colonial cities of the region, which were built along a grid plan. Barbados' capital city of Bridgetown and its garrison is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Bridgetown derived its name from the bridge that was constructed in the area by the original Amerindian settlers. The island was settled by the English in the 17th century, and early dates refer to the area in the Indian Bridge and Indian Bridgetown. Bridgetown was to become a key hub for trade and commerce with its harbor, often filled with trading vessels. This city was also open to the first port coal ships making transatlantic cruising from Africa. The colonial powers England, France, Spain, and Holland were often at war over the prosperous islands of the Caribbean. Protecting the colonies was therefore of great importance and is reflected in the fortifications created along the western coast of Barbados. The Barbados garrison was the largest in the British colonies in the 18th and 19th centuries. It began with the construction of St. Anne's Fort in 1705 and grew to include soldiers' barracks and parade ground and commissariat. In 2011, historic Bridgetown and its garrison was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Bridgetown and its garrison continue to be a hub for social and commercial activity, where historic buildings planned with modern amenities. There are several hotels and vacation rentals in around the World Heritage Site. Why not stay at one? Bridgetown, the garrison, and the surrounding areas are alive with activity including diving and snorkeling, room tours, and horse racing. Today, it has become of the home of Barbados Defense Force, including the Barbados Coast Guard Force. Headquarters of the Barbados Cadet Corps is at Charity Cottage on Garrison Road overlooking the Savannah.
Old Havana and its fortification system. Old Havana encompasses the downtown area of Havana, Cuba, and it is one of the 15 municipalities in Havana that contains the core of the original city of Havana. It is also known for its bright colors and rich cultural heritage, and it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1982. Havana was founded in 1519 by the Spanish, and by the 17th century, it had become one of the Caribbean's main center for shipbuilding. Although it is today a sprawling metropolis of 2 million inhabitants, its whole center retains an interesting mix of Baroque and neoclassical monuments, and a homogeneous assemble of private houses with arcades, balconies, wrought iron gates, and internal country yards. Old Havana has maintained a remarkable unity of character through its adherence to its original urban layout. Urban plazas surrounded by many buildings of outstanding architectural merit and narrow streets lined with the more popular or traditional styles commemorate the historic center of the city. Its overall sense of architectural, historical, and environmental continuity makes it the most impressive historical city center in the Caribbean and one of the most notable in the American continent as a whole. With the establishment and development of the fleet system in the Spanish West Indies, Havana in the second half of the 16th century became the largest port in the region. And in the 18th century, it developed the most complete dockyard in the New World, both which necessitated military protection. The extensive network of defensive installations that was created between the 16th and 19th centuries includes some of the oldest and largest stone fortifications now standing in the America. Old Havana, which is defined by the extent of the former city walls, has maintained the pattern of the early urban setting with its 5 large plazas, and each with its own architectural character. Around these plazas are many outstanding buildings, including the Iglesia Catedral de la Habana, Antiguo Convento de San Francisco de Asís, Palacio del Segundo Cabo, and Palacio de los Capitanes Generales. The complex system of fortifications that protected Havana, its port and its dockyard is compromised by the Fortaleza de San Carlos de la Cabañana, which is one of the largest colonial fortresses in the Americas, and one of the east side of the narrow entrance canal to Havana Bay is the Castillo de la Real Fuerza, which is one of the oldest colonial fortresses in the Americas. Trinidad in the Valley de los Indios, Cuba. Founded in the early 16th century in honor of the Holy Trinity, the city was a bridgehead of the conquest of the American continent. Its 18th and 19th century buildings such as Palacio Brunei and the Palacio Santero were built in its days of prosperity from the sugar trade. Trinidad, located in the center urban province of Sancti Spiritus, was founded in the early 16th century but owes its existence in its historical raison d'etre to the sugar industry that flourished there and in the nearby Valley de los Ingenios, the Valley of the Sugar Mills, from the late 18th century to the late 19th century. The exemplary city of Trinidad's prosperity during the period is clearly legible in its existing built environment, its buildings and ranging in expression from modest, vernacular variants to elaborate and luxurious edifices. The Valle de los Ingenieros is a remarkable testimony to the development of the sugar industry. A living museum of Cuban sugar production includes the sites of 75 former cane sugar mills, plantation houses, barracks, and other facilities related to its vulnerable industry, which has witnessed a gradual and progressive decline. San Pedro de la Roca Castle, Santiago de Cuba. Commercial and political rivalries in the Caribbean regions in the 17th century resulted in the construction of this massive series of fortifications on a rocky promontory built to protect the important port of Santiago. This intricate complex of forts, magazines, bastions, and batteries is the most complete, best preserved example of Spanish-American military architecture, based on Italian and Renaissance design principles. San Pedro de la Roca Castle, a multi-level stone fortress built into a rocky promontory or the El Morro at the southeastern end of the island of Cuba, has guarded the entrance to Santiago de Cuba Bay since 1638. The exceptional fortress and its associated defensive works were constructed in response to the aggressive commercial and political rivalries that menaced the Caribbean during the 17th and 18th century. Today, they constitute the largest and most comprehensive example of the principles of Renaissance military engineering adapted to the requirements of European colonial powers in the Caribbean. A classic bastion fortifications in which geometrical form, symmetry, and proportionality between sides and angles predominate, the castle is an outstanding representative of Spanish-American school of military architecture. San Pedro de la Roca Castle and its associated batteries of La Estrella, Santa Catalina, Aguadores protect the entrance to the bay and port of Santiago de Cuba, which was of great importance because of its geographical situation, its favorable currents, and its protected anchorage. The fortress was built into the promontory's steep cliffs in a progression of terraces, one above another, linked by a series of stairways. At the lowest level, just above high water mark, is a fortified guide platform, powder magazine, commanding building, and guard post.
Colonial City of Santo Domingo. The capital city of the Dominican Republic, it is the oldest continually inhabited European settlement in the Americas. Founded in 1498 by Bartolome Columbus, the city has a long and fascinating history, having been victimized by pirates, overrun by slaves, renamed by a dictator, and more. It is a city where history comes to life. Santo Domingo's colonial zone was declared a World Heritage Site by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. The National History Park. UNESCO Heritage Site in Haiti consists of a secular structure, military building, and the palace. The Palace of Sans Souci, the buildings at Ramiers, and in particular the Citadel, serves as a universal symbol of liberty, being the first monuments to be constructed by black slaves who had gained their freedom. This collective site is recognized because this is the largest fortress that belongs to the Western Hemisphere. In addition, these structures were also historically significant as they were built at a time when Haiti was a pre-republic. Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park is a cultural UNESCO World Heritage Site in St. Kitts. It was inscribed in 1999 and is a well-preserved fortress located atop a hill in the island. The national park itself was established in 1987. The fortress was designed by British military engineers, but it was built and maintained by the African slaves. Even though Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park is a cultural site, it is also known for its historical and architectural value. During its heyday, the Brimstone Hill was called the Gibraltar of the West Indies.
The Pitons Management Area in St. Lucia. The 2,900-hectare site near the town of Sophia includes the Pitons, two volcanic spires rising side by side from the sea in 770 meters and 743 meters high respectively, linked by the Piton-Myren Ridge. The volcanic complex includes a geothermal field with sulfurous minerals and hot springs. Coral reefs cover almost 60% of the site's marine area. A survey has revealed species of finfish, cnidaria, including corals, mollusks, sponges, echinoderms, arthropods, and annelid worms. The dominant terrestrial vegetation is tropical moist forest, grading to subtropical wet forest, with small areas of dry forest and wet elfin woodland on the summits. At least 148 plant species have been recorded on Guru Piton, 97 on Petit Piton, and the intervening ridge. The Guru Piton is home to some bird species, indigenous rodents, opossum, bats, reptiles, and amphibians. The Blue and John Crow Mountains in Jamaica. The Blue and John Crow Mountains is located in the eastern end of the island of Jamaica and includes Jamaica's highest point, the Blue Mountain Peak at 2,256 meters. The park covers an area of 41,180 hectares and incorporates much of the interior of the parishes of Portland, St. Thomas, St. Andrew, and a small section of southeast St. Mary. The Blue and John Crow Mountains National Park comprises three mountain ranges: the Port Royal Mountains to the west, the Blue Mountains, and John Crow Mountains in the east, divided by the Baff Bay and Rio Grande valleys on the north side of the ranges. Surrounded by a buffer zone of 28,494 hectares, the pristine primary forest of the Blue and John Crow Mountains was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015 for its natural and cultural heritage.